Welcome to Common Sense Conservatism. I am Lincoln Chrysler. All thoughts and opinions are my own. I need a drink before we tackle this one. Alright. This Atlantic piece from 4 days ago now, declaring that President Trump called Americans who died in war losers and suckers. People are falling for this, and I do not know why. The article in the Atlantic cites a visit to a cemetery in Paris of American troops, saying that the president called it off, even though there's an email showing that it was called off because of the weather. I know there's plenty of people who would like to see something bad happen to the president in a helicopter accident, but there are people on the government payroll, with good reason, paid to ensure that that doesn't happen, and unfortunately they work for the people of the United States and not the fringe left. So, he didn't go that day. Supposedly, he had a conversation with senior staff members talking about how the cemetery is full of losers and why the hell would he go. Called 1,800 Marines suckers for getting killed. And none of this. I'm taking another look. I already know. Oh, yep, here we go. These sources and others quoted in this article spoke on condition of anonymity. Now, I've been a journalist before. I understand what an anonymous source is, but you shouldn't just have anonymous sources. One reason for this is that if I write an article about Trump kicked a puppy last week and I cite an anonymous source, and then a couple days later, another newspaper or website or whatever cites another anonymous source, corroborating the first anonymous source. Well, they're anonymous. I'm not sharing my sources. The other person's not sharing theirs. And for all we know, the anonymous source corroborating the first story is the same anonymous source. We don't know, because they're anonymous, and the American people don't know. So that's the problem with only having anonymous sources. Then we get to the point where all these people are willing to go on the record and say that they didn't hear anything like that at all. Okay, Melania Trump, First Lady, standing by the president, she says it's not true. Now, I got it, she's the First Lady, she's supposed to say good things about Donald Trump. How often does she do it? There's plenty of people who think that their marriage is in jeopardy and whatever. The election in November is not a referendum on the marriage of Donald and Melania Trump. I don't know what kind of issues they're having. But she doesn't necessarily speak up that often, like major events. You know, she's speaking up over this one, though, probably for a reason. I can't imagine that she likes, you know, seeing unfounded BS thrown at her husband any more than any other wife does. Sarah Sanders, former White House press secretary. She's not the press secretary anymore. She's got no reason to speak up. Dan Scavino said that he was with the president in France and called the report complete lies. A general. So, one of the highest ranking members of the supposed group of losers, right? If anybody was going to get pissed off about this and corroborate, it'd be a general. So, General Keith Kellogg, National Security Advisor to the VP, also said that the story's false. Absolutely lacks merit. He's been by the president's side. He's always shown the highest respect to active duty troops and veterans. Utmost respect paid to those who give the ultimate sacrifice and those wounded in battle. Veterans Affairs Secretary. Another person that would probably say something, right? Veterans Affairs Secretary. Robert Wilkie hopped on CNN and defended the president. CNN. Okay. This is a guy who goes on CNN. CNN doesn't typically have complimentary things to say about President Trump. This guy went on CNN, defended the president, and he's the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. This one's amazing. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton can't stand the president, and the president can't stand him anymore. Said in the book that he frickin' put out right after he cut ties with the president cut ties with him, however that happened, I don't remember, to be honest with you. I'm not going to act like I do. But put out a book. Trump didn't want that book to be put out. Can't imagine it says too many complimentary things about the president. Can't say I've read it. Can't say I'm planning to. But his book says that weather and security were primary factors resulting in the cancellation of that trip. Now, I don't know John Bolton. He doesn't look like the kind of guy that I'd have a good time with. But I've written a couple books. Not the kind of books that John Bolton writes. Not about policy or politics or anything. I don't know enough about that. I know enough about it for what I'm doing here. But I've written a few books, and here's the thing about writing a book. You want people to read it. You want to get it out in front of people. You put a couple of years at least into that thing. You want it to get out there. And if it has something to say about current events, you're going to use that. If he could have hung... If he could have hung his book on this nail, hey, read it. It talks all about this. The president is horrible, and here's why. It's in chapter 6. He would have done that. Especially given the fact that there's no love lost between those two guys. If he could have done it, he would have done it. It would have struck a blow to the president, and he would have gotten, a couple years of his life's work out in front of more readers on the back of it. He would have done it. All right? And that's speaking as an author, somebody who wants to get stuff out in front of the public. I know what that feels like. It's awesome. All right? He didn't do that. He could have kept his yap shut, and he didn't do that either. That means something. He could have just been like, oh, well, I know this is BS, but screw that dude, I don't like him anyway. John Bolton came out. Crazy. Also told Fox News White House correspondent John Roberts that if the canceled trip had been the result of a presidential temper tantrum, he would have given it a full chapter in his book. Yeah. I can see that. Because the book is not about how awesome it was to work for President Trump. Former son-in-law of Arizona Senator John McCain, Ben Domenick, got on, I want to say it's Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace, or he tweeted, he said that the Atlantic had not exactly clothed itself in glory with regard to journalistic integrity. Again, somebody else who doesn't have any reason to come to the president's defense, except that he felt something was done wrong. I'm confident I have better sources within this White House than Jeffrey Goldberg, and I expect that upon investigation, his anonymously sourced story will live up to the quality we can expect from the Atlantic under his leadership. Jeffrey Goldberg is... So all these people are willing to put their names on the line and say that this Atlantic story is a bunch of BS. Nobody is willing to put their name on the line to corroborate it. It's all unnamed anonymous sources. And if it was your friend, family member, loved one. Somebody was like, "Oh, I heard that your daddy used to touch little kids." You'd want to know who said that about your daddy, or your best friend, or your girlfriend, or a potential interest, or you. You'd want to know. And if all somebody could say is, well, it's a couple of unnamed sources, and you knew better, what would you do? Would you take that? Would you take the word of an unnamed source? Like, you would want better to be done by you. You wouldn't want your name dragged through the mud because of an unnamed source, but because it's President Trump, it's okay. Because screw that guy. Like, we're politicizing soldiers. And that's not right either, because soldiers don't even get to put their uniform on and do political things. I can't go to a Trump rally in uniform, and there's reasons for that, because soldiers aren't meant to be political symbols. There's something called the Hatch Act. Look it up. If a soldier or a government employee violates the Hatch Act, they can get in trouble. But these journalists at the Atlantic, Mr. Goldberg, can throw around some anonymous sources and politicize veterans to do a slam piece on the President of the United States. It's not okay, with no sources willing to attach their names to it. But plenty of people have no reason to attach their names to anything defending the President, attaching their names to something defending the President. Think about that. But I had a guy on my social media the other day talking about, ooh, I've served before, and like, there's no losers in my family. And, well, as far as we know, he didn't say it. You know, unnamed sources. If we're using that standard, I'm hanging 14 inches of dangling fury and have a decades-long career as a masked vigilante. Like, I'm Batman. You know, come on now. If I walked around saying that and all I had was unnamed sources to back me up, like, you'd think, ooh. But hey, it's okay because it's in the Atlantic and it's about somebody that we don't like anyway, right? Stick to the issues. Stick to the issues. Vote on the issues. Look at who's a puppet. Look at who's a puppet. People are saying, like, have been trying to act like Putin's working the president like a puppet. There's been sanctions against Russia. Like, Biden's going to be a puppet. And I feel sorry for that guy. I feel sorry for him. He's being used. He's almost 80 years old, and he should be enjoying retirement with like his grandkids or something. But he's being used by the freaking socialist agenda. That's my honest feelings. Be that as it may, anything that the president has said on record, like he had bad things to say about John McCain. Yeah, John McCain's a war hero. That doesn't mean that nobody has the right to disagree with him. Keezer Khan, the father of that captain that lost his life in the war. Gold Star family, that means something. But Gold Star family members are also people with thoughts and opinions and jobs, and that's not their whole. You're allowed to disagree with somebody like that on a personal matter without it having to do with that. If you disagree with me, it doesn't mean that you hate white people, or that you hate people affiliated with the military, or that you hate people who make stupid political vlogs. It means you have a disagreement with me, or even better, with something I said. So stop making things into things they're not just because you're biased negatively towards the president. Use your mind. Engage your brain. Examine things logically. And think about why somebody might have put a slam piece like this in a paper with no sources right before an election.